In the middle of the African savanna, herbivorous animals such as elephants, zebras and antelopes live in perfect harmony. However, as in every food chain, there are carnivorous predators and the biggest of them, also known as the king of the jungle, is the lion. One of them has just arrived in the territory and is looking closely at an antelope, which will be his next prey. Hours later, the animal's fate is revealed when a jeep passes through the savanna, right next to what remains of the antelope, devoured by the lion. The vehicle speeds towards a village where a doctor called Andrew has just had surgery. The jeep soon attracts the attention of one of the villagers, who warns the doctor to leave because a group of criminals is approaching. Andrew hastens to speak to his wife, Sue, who is teaching Christian lessons to the village children. Unfortunately, he warns them that they must leave the country, otherwise they will be captured by the criminals and become prisoners. The couple then travel to a small airport, where they will be taken by a private pilot called Grun. However, when they arrive at the airport, the pilot charges them twice as much as they agreed and demands that their suitcases be left behind. With no other choice, Andrew accepts and, together with Sue and a group of tourists, they set off in the plane. In the midst of the clouds, the plane flies smoothly, but it is not long before it is hit by strong turbulence. Andrew, who has experience as a pilot, soon realizes that something is wrong, but Grun insists that the situation is under control. Unfortunately, the turbulence gets worse and worse, until one of the plane's engines explodes and the ship begins to fall rapidly. The impact of the crash throws the passengers out of the plane, including Andrew, who wakes up in the wreckage. Desperate, he runs in search of his wife and finds her trapped in the back of the plane. The doctor soon asks Tabo to help him get her out, but Sue's leg is caught on a sharp piece of metal. Grun then appears to help the two of them get the woman out and, minutes later, Andrew makes a makeshift bandage on her leg. Unfortunately, Chrissy didn't have the same luck as the other crew members and ended up losing her life in the accident. Her boyfriend, Max, mourns this terrible loss, but all he can do is bury her in the African desert. This accident arouses the fury of Tabo, who goes to the pilot to ask him what he thinks, but he refuses to answer his questions. The passenger insists and Grun threatens him with his machete, prompting Andrew to take control of the situation before anyone else is hurt. The mood calms down and Tabo asks where they ended up. Unfortunately, the news is less than encouraging, as the group has ended up in the Nala Reserve, which is known for being home to the most dangerous carnivorous animals, such as leopards, hyenas and of course, lions. However, there is a village called Kwana that is a day's journey away, so they need to hurry before night falls. The group then prepares for the long journey, but Sue is still injured and, motivated by her faith, decides to stay, despite the risks. Andrew decides to do the same and tells Grun to ask the villagers to come and rescue them. The pilot is not satisfied with the couple's attitude and so refuses to leave his revolver so that they can protect themselves. Tabo insists that Andrew and Sue should accompany him, but even though he thanks them for their concern, they decide to stay. He then follows the rest of the group heading east, but after hours of walking, Max tells him that they are going in the wrong direction. Grun, however, says he knows where he's going and tells the rest of the group to keep going. Back at the crash site, Andrew lets Sue rest for a while and goes to check out the surroundings, with the vultures flying over the plane and indicating a bad omen. The doctor then goes to check the little luggage he was able to bring on the plane and realizes that inside the ship, there were several heavy loads. Andrew soon realizes that the pilot refused to bring any luggage, as the ship was already heavier than allowed, resulting in this serious accident. Meanwhile, the guy continues to lead the group as they head towards an inhospitable desert. The unbearable heat soon affects everyone and, worst of all, the water reserves are almost gone. Tyler, who had drunk all the water in the bottle before entering the desert, starts to feel sick and falls down in the dunes. Grun gives him some water, but explains that he's not doing it out of the goodness of his heart, but because he knows that on the other side of the desert there's a village and a river with plenty of water. The young man regains his strength and so the group continues their long trek through the desert. At the same time, the couple remain on the plane and, to comfort his wife, Andrew promises that, as soon as they return home, they will adopt a child. This makes Sue very happy and she begins to say a prayer on behalf of the group that has gone in search of help. Unfortunately, as Max had warned them, Grun has led them down the wrong path and, on the other side of the dunes, what they find is the vast savanna, with no settlements nearby. Furious, Max pulls out Grun's revolver and threatens to shoot him, because it's his fault the plane crashed and now they'll have to go all the way back. The guy, however, shows no remorse and just tells them to keep going, otherwise they'll all lose their lives. With no other choice, the group set off on their return journey, now without water and extremely tired from the effort. However, Max refuses to follow Grun and sets off alone towards the west, unaware that nature's predators are watching him at this moment. Hours later, Grun, Tabo and Tyler cross the desert until they finally find the plane again. However, when they get there, Andrew and Sue aren't around, but on the floor and walls of the ship, the pilot finds red marks and scratches made by an animal's claws. Confused by this, he doesn't notice when Andrew attacks him from behind and tries to eliminate him with all his fury. Tragically, the doctor reveals that a lion appeared near the plane, attacked them and, despite his efforts, he was unable to protect Sue and she was devoured by the predator. The doctor blames the tragedy on Grun and intends to eliminate him right there to avenge his wife. However, Tabo picks up a flare gun, fires it at the plane and the smoke interrupts the fight. The problem is that it was the only beacon they had and now the group must decide their next move. For Andrew, nothing else matters and he uses his last strength to make a tomb in honor of his beloved companion. Meanwhile, Grun goes to talk to Tabo and tells him that the lions will attack them at dusk and there is no chance of surviving their attack. The only solution is to lock themselves in the cabin of the plane, but it can only fit 3 people and, with Max having gone the other way, there are still 4 survivors. Tabo then goes to talk to Andrew about it, but the doctor doesn't want to talk and once again confronts Grun. He says that he found his illegal goods inside the plane and that the excess weight caused the plane to crash. To prove it, the doctor opens one of the boxes and finds rhinoceros horns inside. The pilot was carrying forbidden cargo on the plane, even though he had been hired to bring medicine and medical equipment to the locals. Grun hits back, saying that the plane crash was a fatality and that he had warned Andrew about the risk of staying there. The doctor doesn't accept Grun's answer and says that he doesn't care about anyone but himself. The guy decides to end the discussion and focus on the most important thing at the moment, which is surviving the night. The four then decide by lot who should stay out of the cabin and, in a coin toss, Tyler ends up being the loser. The young man doesn't accept this and tells Tabo that, as a hired guide, he is responsible for his safety and should be the one to stay outside. He refuses, so Tyler offers him $1 million, but Tabo again refuses, as he doesn't want to risk his life for money. Andrew takes pity on the young man and, to try to calm him down, he offers him his perished wife's crucifix. Tyler, however, doesn't believe in religion and refuses the offer, preferring to come to terms with his own bad luck. Night is approaching and Grun collects as much wood as he can for the young man to build a fire. It may be his only protection from the dangers of the savannah, although Tyler doesn't quite believe it. Finally, Tabo, Andrew and Grun squeeze into the cabin and lock the back door, while Tyler builds a fire in front of the other half of the plane. Nearby, Max, still holding his pistol, tries to find his way, but is completely lost in the darkness of the night. The young man soon hears the noise of wild animals in the surroundings and, in the face of desperation, he fires a shot with his gun. The group hears 5 more shots, with Grun deducing that Max is now out of bullets and totally unprotected. His prediction comes true and the young man, unable to see anything in the dark, just shoots into the air and becomes another victim of the savannah. This situation only makes Tyler even more nervous and he adds more wood to the fire to try to protect himself. The hours pass and Tyler ends up falling asleep on the plane, just as Grun leaves the cabin to go potty. He then rushes to wake the young man, warning him to stay awake and keep the fire burning to keep the predators away. Afterwards, Grun returns to the cockpit, without realizing that a poisonous snake has managed to get inside while he was away. As soon as he returns, the pilot falls asleep, along with Andrew and Tabo, and the 3 of them don't notice the snake crawling near them. If the situation wasn't critical enough, Tyler ends up falling asleep again, letting the fire burn out more and more. Because of his carelessness, in the darkness of the savannah, 3 pairs of menacing eyes begin to watch him. They are 3 lions who, on seeing the flame of the campfire go out, begin to slowly approach their prey. Inside the cabin, the trio continue to fall asleep, until they hear Tyler's screams, being attacked by the lions. Andrew is disturbed to hear the young man's despair and insists on coming out to help, but Grun refuses, as there is nothing to be done. Even though he knows he's right, the doctor opens the cabin door and sees one of the lions in front of him, trying to attack him. Luckily, Grun and Tabo manage to pull the doctor out and quickly close the door. Even so, the lion uses his claws to try to get through the passage and his sharp nails begin to tear at the metal door. Grun then forces the door with an iron pipe, but at the same moment, Andrew sees that the snake is in Tabo's leg. The guy despairs and tries to pull it out, but ends up being bitten by it, and if something isn't done soon, its venom will wipe him out. The doctor quickly takes 2 cords and ties them tightly around Tabo's leg and gives him a tree branch to bite on. Then, using a knife, he cuts the site of the wound and presses down hard, causing the poison to be expelled. The doctor's quick action saved Tabo's life and, after much insistence, the lions left. When dawn breaks, Andrew wakes up and leaves the cabin, only to find the remains of Tyler, mercilessly devoured by the trio of predators. The doctor can't stand what he's just seen and goes to isolate himself in a tree, leaving Grun to help Tabo. Unfortunately, although Andrew has removed most of the poison, he can't move his infected leg and is forced to use a makeshift crutch to walk. The 2 then start the journey back to the village and Grun calls Andrew, but the doctor has already given up and just wants to wait for his tragic fate. The pilot is enraged by this and continues on his way, until, in the distance, he sees a car coming towards him. Tabo and Grun believe that at last someone has arrived to help them and even Andrew has his hopes renewed. However, when he sees who is in the car, he realizes that they are not villagers, but members of the criminal group. Heavily armed, the gang members accuse the 3 of invading their territory. To make matters worse, they find rhino horns in the wreckage of the plane and threaten to eliminate them for stealing goods from their country. The criminals then start interrogating Andrew who, at this point, just keeps quiet, not caring what happens to him. This attitude angers the gang leader, who hits him in the face with his gun and threatens to eliminate him right there. Tabo tries to argue, saying that there's no need to hurt anyone, but in response he is shot by one of the criminals, who takes him out without hesitation. The whole situation horrifies Grun and, to try to save the doctor, he confesses that it was he who got the horns. However, the criminals take him prisoner and, while the leader goes to get a truck to take them away, the other 2 keep watch. One of the guards starts harassing the doctor, who doesn't react to his provocations, so he decides to go to Grun and challenge him to a fight. The pilot, however, refuses and accepts everything quietly in order to stay alive. More hours pass and Andrew, exhausted and thirsty, ends up fainting at the same time as the guards fall asleep, weapons in hand. Seeing that anything goes to survive, Grun slowly approaches one of the guards and tries to take his gun. Just as he was about to take it, the guy wakes up and pulls the trigger, but he had forgotten to release the safety catch and the gun doesn't fire. The pilot seizes this chance and pushes him against the plane, causing the other guard to wake up. He then rushes to get his gun ready, but before he can, Andrew rushes towards the man and tries to take the gun from him. In the middle of the confrontation, the guard pulls the trigger, firing at everything around him. To his misfortune, one of the shots ends up hitting his colleague in the head, who is instantly eliminated. Even so, he keeps shooting and tries to get rid of the doctor, but Andrew directs the gun at the guard's face, causing him to shoot himself. Although he did it to survive, the doctor violated his own moral code and that of his profession by taking a life. Driven by remorse, Andrew tries to save the guard, but it's too late and he succumbs to his injuries. Grun tries to convince him that he did the right thing, but seeing the doctor's inconsolable state, the pilot decides to admit his guilt over the whole incident and apologizes for the loss of everyone. Finally, Grun asks Andrew to help save him because, for once in his life, he wants to do the right thing. This attitude finally convinces the doctor to continue fighting to survive, and the two of them continue on their way to the Quana village. Even so, Andrew is weak and his leg is injured, forcing Grun to carry him the whole way. The doctor then asks him to leave him, as he is only slowing him down and they will soon be followed by criminals or savanna predators. However, Grun is determined to save Andrew and says he has finally found the right way to the village. The two then set off towards a huge rock wall and are forced to climb it, with the pilot doing his best to help the doctor. They are about to finish the climb, but when Grun tries to pull Andrew up, the doctor slips and falls to the ground. The pilot runs towards him, but in the distance, he hears the roars of the pack of lions, which is coming towards them. Grun is desperate and tries at all costs to lift Andrew up and help him climb the rocks. To motivate him, the pilot admits that he has always admired the attitude of people like him and Sue, who do everything they can to help others without expecting anything in return. He, on the other hand, has always tried to take advantage of others, and this has led him to make many mistakes in life. In the midst of these confessions, the pair manage to climb the rocky wall, but the lions are attracted by the blood on Andrew's leg and are getting closer and closer. The pilot tries to keep the two hidden and, after searching for a while, the predators seem to give up the hunt and leave. What's more, Grun spots the village a few kilometers away and everything indicates that they're going to make it. However, a strong wind begins to blow near them, spreading its scent, which is quickly smelled by one of the lions. The predator then returns to the stone wall and starts sniffing again, with Grun and Andrew trying to keep silent. As if that wasn't bad enough, a scorpion ends up crawling up Grun's clothes. The scorpion then passes through him, without harming him, but then walks towards Andrew's face. As soon as he gets the chance, Grun manages to remove the scorpion from the doctor's face, but his movement causes a stone to fall and the sound attracts the predator. Seeing that there is no escape, Grun removes his jacket, puts a piece of it on Andrew's leg wound and smears his body with blood. Finally, he says that no matter what happens, the doctor must stick to his goal of helping people in Africa. Not only that, Andrew must continue to believe in the same cause that Sue defended until the end of her life. On hearing this, Andrew soon understands what Grun is up to and tries to stop him. However, for the first time, the pilot is willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of people other than himself, and he doesn't want to miss this opportunity. Then, with his arms and face stained with blood, he stands up and lets out a scream in the direction of the lion. The predator has finally found its prey, but Grun doesn't care anymore and heads down the hill, running and screaming until he lures the lion away from Andrew. The doctor gets up and goes to see the young pilot who, unfortunately, ends up tripping over the ground and is also devoured by the ferocious predator. Faced with Grun's noble sacrifice, Andrew gathers his remaining strength and walks towards the village. Despite his efforts, his body can no longer stand the hunger, thirst and blood loss, causing him to fall to the ground. A few minutes later, the doctor gets up again and hears the sound of two hyenas approaching quickly, hungry. Faced with what seems to be such a cruel fate, Andrew questions his own faith and asks God if this really must be the end for him. Even though he's not convinced, he doesn't intend to give up without a fight and, armed with a piece of tree, the doctor runs towards the hyenas. However, before the confrontation can begin, a bolt of lightning suddenly strikes from the sky, driving away the carnivorous animals. This is followed by a heavy downpour and Andrew takes the opportunity to feel the water on his face and quench his thirst. Sometime later, the doctor has a vision in which his beloved wife appears before him and tries to comfort him. Andrew is happy to see her again, but when he returns to reality, he meets two of the villagers who have come to his rescue. Happy to see that his efforts were not in vain, Andrew is taken safely to the village. What's more, he will continue on his mission to help those in need because, despite all the savagery that surrounds the region, he has learned from Sue and Grun that there are good people there who need his help.